Hi everyone, and welcome to another speed build. Today I'm sharing my recreation of the Foxbury Commons because the original one needed a little bit of help, or actually a lot of help, so I just demolished the whole thing and started over, and I had a lot of fun with this build. I was trying to get a little bit more creative with the design of it, and I was trying to do some interesting things with the layout of it, because I wanted there to be this mixture of spaces that felt very open and very grand, and then other areas that felt a little bit more cozy, a little bit more closed in. So what I did was I used the smallest wall height for this build, but it is 3 stories, so I have some areas that are open for both levels, and then other areas where you, of course, are just having, one level at a time, and the space feels a little bit more cozy and closed in. Because that was something that I did see in the buildings when I was in college, where you would walk in and there would just be this impressive entrance that wowed you, but if you went further back into the building or you went up to the upper levels of it, you would find these areas with lower ceilings and that were a little bit smaller, a little bit cozier. And those were the areas that I tended to seek out when I was doing homework. So that's really something I wanted this to have, like where you go up to the upper levels of it and you feel like there are just these kind of closed off studying areas, or areas that students go into less, where you can get a little bit more peace and quiet when trying to do your homework. So within this build, there is of course a cafeteria area, and then there are also those studying nooks all over the place, little seating areas. And there's also a gym, because I felt like the campus needed a gym, because that is something you usually see on college campuses. And there is also a robotics lab, and in this building it is its own separate lab rather than just a couple of workstations out in the open. So I think this will be a more fun build to use than the other one, and I am really looking forward to using it in my Discovery University Let's Play. But with this build, I was trying to make it look like it was 2 separate buildings that were linked together by a bridge, because when looking around at the decorative buildings, I saw that some of those had that on them, and I was trying to make this look like it fit in with the campus. So when I started putting the wallpaper on the outside, I used whites and grays to match those, and I found a wallpaper that I think is pretty much what you see on those buildings. So it does end up looking pretty close, and kind of a backstory I was imagining for this was that the building on the right was originally here and it was just that one, and then later on they decided to add a gym to this and add the workshop to this, so they added that other building on. Or maybe the other building was the original and they wanted something a little bit larger and grander, so they built the other building and then just used that as the cafeteria. But I think it makes a little bit more sense that the larger building on the right would have been the original one, and then they made the other one to add those things onto it. And I do want to mention that the inspiration for the structure of the building on the right came from, I think it was Seattle University's Student Commons building, because the inspiration for this build wasn't really coming that easily at first. So I did look at some pictures of modern campus student unions, and I found a picture of the one from Seattle University. I thought that looked really cool. So that one had what this one had, where you have the large 2-floor glass area in the front, and then you kind of have that area up above that's overhanging a little bit. And then you have that roof on that 3rd level, or I think it was a 4th level in that building, kind of hanging over, and then you have that large column coming down from that. That's definitely not something I would have really thought to do on my own, but I think it did look really cool once I actually started on that with this build. And here I'm just trying to figure out some of the layout. I actually cut out a lot of the figuring out of the layout, because it took me a while to kind of figure all of that out, how I was going to divide up all the spaces. So I figured it was a little bit easier to just leave that out rather than, just having 2 minutes of me figuring that out. I knew I wanted to have the large 2-floor cafeteria area when you first walked in, but everything else took a little bit of trial and error to figure out. But at this point, we're working on the exterior coloring of the building and all the wallpapering's done. We of course have lots of whites and grays, so I'm just picking out the roof color and all the trim and everything. And I use black as the accent color for the outside of it, because I always like that. I always just feel like that's a very sleek and modern look. So we're just getting all the trim on those overhanging areas. And I wanted this build to have lots of skylights just to add to that really high-end modern look. And plus, I always really like seeing how the glass skylights kind of, cast light down into the rest of the building. And plus, it looks really nice when you're doing those fly-throughs at the end of the build. So I do love adding those, and we just have them all over the place here. So we also have some here over this cafeteria area right as you walk in, and then I add a bunch over the other gym building. But here I'm just getting columns all over the place just to kind of border the corners of the build, and I'm so glad that they added that feature in with the most recent patch to be able to change column heights. Like, it just makes it so you could take one column and use it for all levels of the building. You can also have it go up into the half walls, which is really handy because before what you had to do was, obviously you had to put a column in and you had to raise it up, and sometimes things didn't always work out perfectly. And there were issues where you would have a column on the lower level and then you go to put a column on the level above it, but it would be kind of popped out a little bit, it wouldn't really be flush. So I am really glad that they added that feature because you don't have to worry about that kind of a thing anymore. I mean, that is something that, that's one of those things that I didn't think I really needed. I never thought about that as a potential feature, but after they introduced it, I realized how helpful that is and how many small annoying issues with builds that fixes. But right now I'm starting to work on the landscaping of this and kind of figuring out what the outside of the build is really going to look like. And I wanted to have this fancy fountain feature here in the front of the building, so I wanted to have some kind of sculpture. So I found this one in the debug catalog, and that's I think it's kind of like the university logo that you see out in front of some of the class buildings. I feel like it's supposed to be some kind of artistic rendition of lobster claws. I don't know if I'm right on that or not, but seeing as their mascot is a lobster, I kind of feel like that's maybe what it is. But I wasn't really feeling that for this build, so I just swapped that out for this other sculpture that you see around campus because it kind of goes with the color scheme of this building a little bit more. And then we're just adding in some greenery here. I wanted to have some shrubs around this to kind of break up all the whites and grays and add a little bit more of an eco-modern feel to this, although this build doesn't really end up having much of an eco-modern feel, but I think it definitely helped to add a little bit more liveliness to the exterior of this building. Here I'm just adding some more skylights to the top of the gym building, and the one thing that is a little annoying about adding skylights is that you always have to be careful where you place the lights underneath, because there was a few times in this build where I put all the lights in a room and I was like, okay, that looks good, I like how that's coming out, and then I went up a level and then I realized that it was right under where the skylight is, so then you just have to kind of go in and shuffle things around a little bit so you don't see the light when looking down through the skylight. But here I'm just getting some more shrubs in, and I wanted there to be a lot of fountains around this building, so what I did was I bordered the buildings with these shrubs, and then around that I put these fountains and then added some more of those jets into them. I did notice that the original Foxbury Commons had some fountains around the building, and there was something from that building that I actually did like, so I decided to kind of do that same sort of thing here on this building, and I really like how it turned out. But I didn't end up completely finishing the outside of this build before going to the inside. That's normally what I do, but with this one I got it most of the way done, and then I just went ahead and furnished the inside of the building. And then the last thing I did was actually finishing the outside. And that was just because there are a lot of open windows on this building, so you can see a lot of what's going on the inside of it. So I wanted to get a picture for what the inside of the building was going to look like before I finished the outside of it. If the inside of it was going to end up being very sparse, then I figured I could add a little bit more to the outside of the building. But if the inside of the building was going to end up being a little bit more colorful and bright, then I felt like I had to make the outside of it a little bit more simple just to kind of balance things out, because with modern buildings like this, I like to make things a little bit more simple. I don't like there to be a ton going on when you're looking at the building, so I just felt like the best thing to do was to just, go to the inside, see how that was going to turn out, and then use that to kind of figure out what the final direction I was going to go in with the exterior of this is. Oh, and I also didn't originally have stairs on the back of that. Well, I guess here it's the right building. There weren't originally stairs there, and I wasn't going to put stairs there because I felt like that would kind of disrupt the look of that building, but I decided to add some to the back anyway because I realized that not having those there would kind of ruin the functionality of the build a little bit, because that side of the lot is where Sims will come in at. So I didn't want it to be where if you wanted to go to the gym or the robot lab, you had to go around to the other side of the building, the other side of the lot, go in, go up through stairs, and then come down. Because with this build, I was trying to kind of have a balance between how it looked and how it functioned, because there are some things that I know can be a little bit annoying when playing a lot. So I was trying to avoid those things as much as possible and make it something that I didn't think would be too annoying to play, where it would take too long to get around to things. So that is why we have both those entrances. There's also 3 bathrooms in this building, which may seem like a lot, but Again, it's a pretty large building, so I didn't want it to be where your sim had to, walk across a lot to go to the bathroom if they're, over in the building where the gym and the workstation is. But at this point, I've gotten the flooring and wallpaper mostly figured out, so I'm just starting on furnishing that cafeteria area that is there when you walk in. So what I did was I made it so the area where the cafeteria station is, or where you get your food from, is kind of set back in. So you have this open area, and then you have this back wall, and then there's this area that kind of sets back from that 2 tiles, and that is where I put that. And that is part of why I wanted to use that smaller wall height, so I could kind of get more control over how the space looks than I would if I had just used a large wall height. And I was thinking about adding this whole kitchen area behind that, making it a separate room that they walk into. But I decided not to do that because, again, that's something that I thought wouldn't really be that good for the functionality of the build. I was worried that if there was a full kitchen, there would be issues with Sims going in that and trying to cook their own meals or something along those lines. Although I did add that vending machine from Get to Work because I felt like that was something that you would see in an area like this. Although I actually just realized that's the medicine fridge, so I need to swap that out before I upload the build to the actual more vending machine type one. But yeah, I know that kind of is somewhere where Sims can just go and grab a bite of food when the cafeteria isn't open, but that does make things a little bit easier if your Sim is hungry and they need food. And they, I believe, will still have to pay for food they get out of that, so there is some incentive to actually get it from that cafeteria station. But here we're just moving to this area to the side, and I wasn't really sure what to do with the space. This is just an area that I built to kind of make the outside look a little bit better, and then I wanted to go furnish it, and I was just like, wait a minute, what do I even do with this? It's kind of this awkward 3-tile wide space. So what it ends up being is just an area with more seating for your Sim. I was kind of thinking it's somewhere off to the side that's maybe a little bit quieter than that open area in the entrance, so they can go over there and eat if they want things to be a little bit more quiet and private. And back here, we just have this seating area with a TV, so we got a rather large TV there. And I was using this item from, I think it was Luxury, yeah, it was from Luxury Party Stuff to kind of create this neat looking backsplash for that TV. So I saw this as being an area where you would just gather with friends to hang out, maybe work on some homework, maybe watch some TV, somewhere to kind of relax. Because I remember in the classroom buildings and the student union building at my college, they did have some areas where there was a TV. I remember there was this one area in a class building where I liked to go do my homework that did actually have a TV there, but I think it was mostly playing the news, or it was playing whatever they had it set to, you couldn't really control it. But I went back here and changed out this whole area because originally I did have that couch and TV set up. But since I had the TV in the back area, I realized that was kind of pointless, and it was just awkwardly right in the middle of this area Sims would probably walk through. So I just turned that into more of those bar height tables with a couple of smaller TVs there. And I think that did work a lot better. But back here, I'm just adding in another seating area. So we just got lots of seating areas throughout this build. And I also replaced some of the tile with this carpet, which I thought made this lower level look a lot better. And I feel like this carpet is actually a kind of carpet that I've seen in the newer buildings at my college campus. It definitely has that sort of modern feel to it. And originally I was making a lot of the seating in this building black, but I ended up going for yellows and oranges instead because I felt like that just wasn't bright and colorful enough. And I feel like this is something you see in these buildings where they try to use fun modern colors to brighten up the space a little bit. And plus I wanted to, try to have the Foxbury colors in here. This place is all about school spirit. And I know the Foxbury colors are yellow and red, but I went for yellow and orange because I just don't really like the combination of yellow and red. It just looks too much like McDonald's to me. I didn't want this to be like welcome to McDonald's, so I just thought this worked a little bit better. And then I did try to add some red accents throughout to get a little bit more of that in here. And I kind of see yellow, orange, and red being the color scheme or the colors for this campus. And then we also have this large banners in this area, which I just thought really added to that school spirit feeling. But that is it for the lower level. So now we're on to the upper level where we have this bathroom, and I, of course, had to use these toilet stalls. And I like how they included a couple of different versions of the stalls. So one of them, there aren't really any gaps in the doors. And then in the other one, there is this rather large, exaggerated gap. And I think they said, like, I was watching the live stream, the deep dive live stream that they did before Discovery University came out. And they said they did that to have more of the European toilet stalls and then kind of the more American one. Like, they're kind of poking fun at how much space there is in American toilet stalls. And I gotta say, I do really like how Europe does their toilet stalls better than America. Because when I went to London last year, I was like, holy crap, there's no gaps. And they have like a lot of the buildings I went to, they had that whole thing. Like, there was a thing on the door that said whether it was occupied or not. And like, why doesn't America do that? You know, like, that just makes things so much easier, because here you have to, like, if you want to find out whether someone's in the stall, you have to kind of like slyly, you know, you have to kind of like quickly look under to see if there's feet there, and it's just awkward. So if bathrooms in America had that, like, that just would make things so much easier, so you don't even have to do that. You know, you just look at it and you're like, okay, it's vacant or it's occupied. And you don't have that awkwardness. Like, I don't even get why there are those gaps in the doors. Like, from a design perspective, I don't know why they do that, because there doesn't need to be one. You know, you could design it so there isn't that gap, or like have some kind of guard or something, or like a flange or something like that on the door. Like, it doesn't need to be like that. But anyway, enough of ranting about toilet stalls. I'm a good bit of the way through furnishing the second level up here, so he does have more computers. Or actually, I'm done with that. Yeah, so I did add some computers to this because one of the requirements for this is that there are 4 computers, so there end up being 6. So, you know, you got a little bit more to choose from this building. And on this level, we do have a couple of ping pong tables. You know, I thought that is always, you know, that would be something fun to include, so you have a little bit of something to do to get your fun up if you're feeling really stressed out after classes. And then we have yet another bathroom up here, just so if you don't have to go downstairs if you're already up here doing something. It would have been good to have been able to include a bathroom on the first level, but there was so much that I wanted to have on the first level that I decided to not try to fit one in. I decided to not try to fit one in down there. But what I decided to do up here to make things a little bit different is create these study areas. They're not really very functional, but that is something that I saw in libraries around campus. I know this isn't really supposed to be a library, but I wanted it to feel like it had a little bit of that functionality. So there are bookcases throughout this build. And yeah, in the libraries on campus, there would be these kind of conference rooms where if you need to work on a school project, you could reserve that. There'd be a whiteboard in there. You can just sit with, you know, in a table in the middle of the room, and you can just sit there with your group members and work on projects. So I thought that'd be something kind of fun to create in this build. Although we don't have any whiteboards that I know of. So what I ended up doing was, well, actually, I'm not even there yet. Right now, I'm currently working on the bathroom, but I mean, there's not really much to this that's different than the one downstairs. I just kind of did the same things that I did down there. But anyway, there isn't a whiteboard item. So what I decided to do instead was take that backdrop, or take that like backdrop item that I used behind the TV downstairs, and just stick it all over the wall in there. So it kind of looks like this fancy backlit whiteboard, and I feel like that did work pretty well. It unfortunately is a little bit glitchy when you look at it, but it does the trick, so I just kept it. I also thought about putting TVs. Yeah, so here I'm going ahead and putting that in. I also thought about putting a TV in here, like having a TV on one wall and then that item on the other, but my worry with that was that Sims would just walk into that room and just stand there and watch TV, which I didn't really want, so I decided to just keep the TVs downstairs and make things a little bit easier with that. But here I'm just adding some chairs in here, and this is a room that, as I said, isn't really as functional. Like, I just kind of have some chairs that aren't attached to the table and look like they're turned a little bit. Like, I was trying to, add a little bit more flair to this room, I guess. Like, with the rest of this building, I was trying to keep things very simple to, make them a little bit more functional. But since this was a space that was a little bit more for show, I figured it was fine to just do this. And then we also have what looks like a pencil just sitting on the desk, like that someone left there. And then I also left what I was imagining to be an empty cup of coffee on the desk that someone, brought in there because they were pulling an all-nighter or something like that, or just needed their caffeine fix. But that is about it for this room. I just added a plant into the corner, I believe, and then we're on to the other one. And I did make this one a little bit larger because I realized that it was cutting into the skylight, because I went up to the next level and then realized there was a wall going through where the skylight was, so I just made it a little bit bigger so that wasn't an issue. And then We have some blinds here because I wanted to give it the look of there being privacy. You know, if you maybe like really want to shut everyone else out, you just close the blinds and that kind of a thing. And we're on to the next room, which is pretty much the same thing. So didn't really take me that long to figure it out. And that is about it for this building over here. The last thing I'm doing is just adding in some more bookshelves, and that is it. So now we're on to the gym area. So we just have the standard exercise equipment in here. We got some weightlifting machines. I added a couple of treadmills in. And oh yeah, so the robotics lab is in the basement, or not the basement. It feels kind of like a basement because of those smaller, higher windows. But it's just there on that first level that you actually have to go down into. I think that's why it really feels like a basement, because the entrance actually comes on to the upper level. And then that basement area is just a little bit smaller, feels a little bit more closed in. So down there we do have that lab. And then there is also a bathroom down there, just so if you are over in this part of the build, as I mentioned before, you don't have to go that far to get to a bathroom. Plus, I also thought it'd be really useful to have some showers in there, so you don't have to, worry about going home to clean off if you want to just stick around here and study or whatever. And I did end up using those wall showers because, we got to get those embarrassing wall showers in here somewhere, because I haven't used them so far in any of the builds that I've done. Over here, we just have this table with some towels and some fizzy drinks on it, a little bit of decoration. And now we're on to the upper level, and the upper level is more so the yoga area. So I just have a few mats set out here, and then I also added some punching bags since I didn't end up fitting those in downstairs. And that is it that we have up here. I didn't really go too, I wasn't really that detailed when furnishing these areas, so they were actually really quick to furnish. So that is it. So now we're on to the basement, and I'm just starting off with furnishing this bathroom here, which is very small. So I was only able to fit in 2 bathroom stalls and I think 2 sinks. Then we got a couple of showers, and I actually pushed it back into that, outer area a little bit, because I wasn't really using that area to build, because I was just kind of like this border area around the build. But yeah, I ended up just pushing this back into that to get a little bit more space for this, so I had more to work with, because I was worried about Sims not being able to get through, and plus I wanted to have some space for that arch there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this area here. The showers are at least their own separate room, so Sims won't get as embarrassed. But I mean, if someone else decides to take a shower at the same time, they're unfortunately going to get a little bit embarrassed from that. But that is it for the bathroom. So now I'm getting started on the robotics lab over here. So I'm just trying to figure out what wallpapers I want to use. And oh yeah, we also have this little landing area down here, but I didn't really put much in here. I did add some banners for the bot savants here. So we just have those several different kinds of banners, that club poster, and then a chair out here or a couch out here, and that is it. So now we're on to the robotics lab, and while for the rest of the build, I was trying to keep things a little bit more minimal, I went all out with the detail in this area because I wanted to make this look like it was really cluttered. They spent a lot of time in here, they've done a little bit of customization. So there's just there's counters, I'm putting these counters out here, and I just fill them up with stuff. I also stick a bunch of posters all over the walls, so I'm just doing that here. And I was kind of thinking, I wasn't sure if I was kind of going back and forth between thinking of this as just the bot savants lab, or maybe the robotics lab that everyone has access to. But either way, I just like the idea that people have come in here and just kind of left things around and customized it a little bit. So I had a lot of fun with furnishing this area. I think this is probably my favorite area that I furnished in this build. And I was also taking some inspiration from the robotics lab that was shown in the original trailer for this. Because from the trailer, I did think that there was actually a robotics lab on campus. And I was pretty disappointed when I realized that there wasn't one. And it was just a couple of workstations just sitting out in the open in the original Commons. So I really wanted to capture the feel of the one from the trailer with this. So I used the same wallpaper that they use. So this one here that came with Discovery University that I used on 2 of the walls. And I also saw that there's a cactus on the floor. So that's why I put that one cactus on the table. And we got that computer hard drive decoration over on the other side of the room. And I also noticed that there were a bunch of posters all over the wall there too. And I did play test this because I want to make sure that there's nothing getting in the way of getting to all the workstations. And it's fine. Your Sims can get around this room perfectly well. So you don't have to worry about that. But the last thing that I'm really doing here is just adding more posters over to this side. So we got a few Void Critter posters. I thought that was something that made a bit of sense to have here. I also found that a lot of the Strangerville posters fit into this room pretty well. Like we have the one over that counter there that looks kind of like some sort of diagram, like maybe some sort of systems diagram or flow chart. So I thought that worked really well for this room, but that is about it for putting all the posters in. So we're just getting a chair over here and adding some more things in. Like I think I added an energy drink there and a couple of robots. I didn't want to add too much in here because I didn't want to make it like there was too much already completed, but I just added one of those chatterbots and that cleaning robot in there, and the rest they'll have to build. And here I just went ahead and swapped out all of the paneling that I used for the one from Island Living because I forgot about that one and I thought it might look a little bit better than what I had there originally, and I really think it did. But we're all done with the interior of this build, so now I'm just adding those final touches to the exterior. So out here we just have some benches, and I added one of those performance stations, I believe it was called, that came with City Living, you know, because I can imagine someone going out there and playing their guitar and trying to get a little bit of money from the other students. And here I have these things here that I was kind of using as a bike rack, but as I discussed in another speed build, I don't think would actually work well as a bike rack, but I still like the look of them as something to lean your bikes up against, and I haven't really found anything else that works better. I might have to go through and find something that works for that a little bit better. I ended up not adding that much more to the exterior of the build because once I saw it with the interior done, I didn't really think it needed that much more to it, but I did add these banners here to the front of the building, you know, like it was, you know, advertising school spirit. There's another one for the bot savant there, and then apart from that, we just have to get the lighting around the building, and then I add a few benches to the outside of it, and that's about it. So I think I'm going to actually cut this commentary off a little bit earlier than usual because there's not really much more that I have to say about this build. So there will be a link to download this in the description if you want to do that. There will also be stuff in there on how to find it in-game. And that's going to be all from me, so if you enjoyed the rest of the video.